The red sand stretched forever under the burning sky. 2 suns hung above the desert, making the air hot and dry. Nothing grew here. Nothing lived here. At least nothing was supposed to live here. But something small moved on the sand. It was white like clean snow. Its scales caught the sunlight and made it glow against the red ground. The creature was no bigger than a human child's toy. It breathed slowly, each breath harder than the last. The hatchling had been born different. While its brothers and sisters came out of their eggs with dark green scales and strong bodies, it had emerged pale and weak. The adults of its kind had looked at it with disgust. In their culture, being different meant being cursed. The elders had made their decision quickly. They carried the white hatchling far from the nesting grounds and left it in the wasteland to die. That was 2 days ago. The small creature had tried to crawl back home, but it didn't know which way to go. Everything looked the same in the desert. Red sand, red rocks, red cliffs in the distance. The suns burned its sensitive skin. It had no water, no food, no shelter. Now it could barely move at all. The hatchling's eyes started to close. Perhaps dying would be easier than fighting. Perhaps the elders were right, and creatures like it didn't deserve to live. Its breathing became even slower. Then a sound came from far away. A low rumbling noise like thunder but steady. The hatchling's eyes opened slightly. Through the heat waves rising from the sand, it saw something moving. A machine, large and metal, rolling across the desert on thick wheels. The vehicle kicked up clouds of red dust as it traveled. Inside the transport rover, Dae-hyun wiped sweat from his face. The air conditioning in his old truck barely worked anymore. He had been driving for 6 hours straight, hauling supplies from the human settlement to the mining outpost on the other side of Creven Prime. This planet was hot, uncomfortable, and full of creatures that didn't like humans very much. But the pay was good, and Dae-hyun needed the money. He took a drink from his water bottle and looked at the navigation screen. Still 3 hours to go. He sighed and adjusted his seat, trying to find a more comfortable position. His back ached from sitting so long. Something caught his eye. A flash of white on the red sand just off to the left of his route. That was strange. Nothing on this planet was white. Everything here was red, brown, or dark green. Curiosity got the better of him. Dae-hyun slowed the rover and turned toward the strange sight. As he got closer, he could see it better. It was alive, some kind of animal lying on the ground. Dae-hyun stopped his truck and stared through the windshield. He recognized the shape. It was a Creven, one of the reptilian natives that lived on this planet, but he had never seen a white one before. Dae-hyun knew he should drive away. The Crevens didn't like humans interfering in their business. They were a proud species, quick to anger and slow to forgive. Getting involved could cause trouble. But as he watched, he saw the small creature's chest rise and fall weakly. It was dying. He thought about his own childhood, growing up in a poor neighborhood back on Earth. He remembered being hungry, being cold, being scared. He remembered the teacher who had helped him when no one else would. That teacher had changed his life. Maybe he could do the same for this creature, whatever it was. Dae-hyun made his decision. He put on his environment suit, checked that the air filter was working, and opened the truck door. The heat hit him immediately, even through the suit. He walked quickly across the sand toward the white hatchling. Up close, he could see how young it was. Its scales were still soft, not hardened like adult Crevens. Its eyes were closed, and its mouth hung open slightly. Dae-hyun knelt down beside it. He touched its side gently. The creature was burning hot, but he didn't know if that was normal or if it had a fever. The hatchling's eyes opened at his touch. They were pale blue, almost colorless. The creature looked at him with confusion and fear. It tried to move away but was too weak. A small sound came from its throat like a whimper. "It's okay," Dae-hyun said softly, even though he knew it couldn't understand him. "I'm not going to hurt you." He looked around the desert. No adult Crevens were in sight. No nests, no settlements, nothing. Why was this baby out here alone? Then understanding hit him. It had been left here on purpose, abandoned, thrown away because it was different. Anger flared in Dae-hyun's chest. What kind of species would do this to their own child? He had heard the Crevens were harsh, but this was cruel beyond belief. He looked down at the dying hatchling and made a promise to himself. He wouldn't let it die alone in the desert. Carefully, he scooped the small creature into his arms. It was lighter than he expected, probably because it had gone so long without food. The hatchling made weak, struggling movements, but it didn't have the strength to fight. Dae-hyun carried it back to his rover and brought it inside. The cool air of the truck seemed to help immediately. The hatchling's breathing became a little easier. Dae-hyun set it down on the passenger seat and looked at it, wondering what to do next. He wasn't a doctor, especially not for alien reptiles, but he had to try something. He pulled out his emergency medical kit and found a package of electrolyte solution meant for humans. It probably wasn't perfect for a Kreven, but dehydration was dehydration in most species. He mixed some with water and used a dropper to put small amounts in the hatchling's mouth. At first, the creature didn't respond. Then its tongue moved, tasting the liquid. Suddenly it was swallowing eagerly, desperate for moisture. Dae-hyun gave it more slowly, careful not to give too much at once. After the hatchling had drunk its fill, it looked at him again. This time there was something different in its eyes. Not fear, but curiosity. Maybe even a tiny bit of trust. Dae-hyun smiled. "Welcome aboard, little one," he said. "I don't know what I'm going to do with you, but we'll figure it out together." The rover's engine rumbled to life again. Dae-hyun pulled back onto his route, heading for the mining outpost. But now he had a passenger. A small, white, rejected creature that the universe had thrown away. A creature that someone had decided didn't deserve to live. Well, Dae-hyun thought, the universe could be wrong sometimes. And so could the Krevens. This little one deserved a chance just like everyone else. He didn't know what would happen next. He didn't know if he could keep it alive, or what the Krevens would say if they found out. But he knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going to leave it behind to die. 3 days had passed since Dae-hyun found the white hatchling in the desert. The small creature now lived in a storage container in the back of his rover, lined with soft cloths and placed near a heat lamp. Dae-hyun had learned quickly that while the planet was hot during the day, the nights were freezing. The hatchling needed warmth to survive. He had named it Hyan, which meant white in his language. It seemed fitting. The creature was getting stronger each day. At first, it could barely lift its head. Now it could sit up and even crawl around a bit inside its container. Its pale blue eyes followed Dae-hyun wherever he went in the small cabin. Feeding had been a challenge. Dae-hyun didn't know what young Krevens ate. He tried small pieces of the dried meat from his supplies. Hyan sniffed it but wouldn't eat. He tried protein bars broken into tiny pieces. Same result. He was starting to worry when he remembered the insect paste he carried for emergencies. It was made from processed bugs and was supposed to be a complete protein source. He offered a small amount on his finger. Hyan's tongue flicked out, tasted it, and suddenly the hatchling was eating eagerly. Relief flooded through Dae-hyun. At least he could keep the creature fed. The mining outpost had been surprised to see him arrive with a passenger. The station manager, a woman named Yuna, had stared at Hyan with wide eyes. "Is that a Kreven?" she asked. "Yes," Dae-hyun said simply. "Why is it white?" "I don't know. I found it in the desert, left to die." Yuna shook her head. "The Krevens won't like this. They have strict rules about their young. You shouldn't get involved." "Too late for that," Dae-hyun replied. "I already am involved." Yuna sighed but didn't push the matter. She helped him find more insect paste and gave him some advice about keeping reptilian creatures healthy. She had worked with various alien species before and knew a bit about their care. Now Dae-hyun was on his return journey to the human settlement. The route took him through different terrain this time, past ancient rock formations and dried riverbeds. Hyan seemed fascinated by the changing landscape. The hatchling would press against the side of its container, watching everything pass by. Dae-hyun talked to it while he drove. He knew Hyan couldn't understand his words, but it felt right to speak anyway. He told stories about Earth, about the oceans and forests and cities. He talked about his family, his friends, his dreams of one day owning a bigger ship and exploring the galaxy. To his surprise, Hyan started responding, not with words but with sounds, little chirps and clicks that seemed to change based on what Dae-hyun was saying. When he talked about happy things, Hyan made bright musical sounds. When he talked about sad things, the sounds became lower and softer. Was the creature understanding him, or was it just reacting to his tone of voice? Dae-hyun wasn't sure, but he kept talking anyway. On the 4th day, something remarkable happened. Dae-hyun was eating his lunch while parked at a rest stop. Hyan was watching him from the container as usual. Dae-hyun held up a piece of fruit. "Apple," he said clearly, pointing at it. "Apple." Hyan tilted its head and made a sound. "Appa." Dae-hyun nearly dropped his food. Had Hyan just tried to repeat the word? He grabbed another item from his meal. "Bread," he said, holding it up. "Bread. Bae." Hyan responded, its tongue struggling with the sounds. Excitement rushed through Dae-hyun. The hatchling could learn language. He spent the rest of his break pointing at things and saying their names. Hyan tried to repeat each one, getting better with practice. The little creature was smart, much smarter than anyone had given its species credit for. Over the next week, their communication grew more complex. Hyan learned dozens of words: water, food, sleep, hot, cold, happy, sad. The hatchling combined them in simple ways. Water want when it was thirsty, food good when it liked something. But more than the words, a bond was forming between them. Hyan would climb out of its container and sit on the seat next to Dae-hyun while he drove. The hatchling seemed to understand that it was safe here, that Dae-hyun would protect it. One evening, as the suns were setting and painting the sky purple and orange, Dae-hyun stopped to make camp. He set up his small tent outside the rover and built a fire. Hyan sat beside him, closer to the flames than Dae-hyun could comfortably get. The heat didn't bother the young Kreven at all. "Tell me about your family," Dae-hyun said quietly. "Where did you come from?" Hyan was silent for a long moment. Then in its halting voice it spoke. "Egg, many eggs. Brothers, sisters, all green. Me white. And they left you because you were different?" "Different bad," Hyan said, its voice sad. "Elders say cursed. Say bring bad luck. Us go away." Dae-hyun felt anger rise in him again. "You're not cursed. You're just different. Different can be good." Hyan looked at him with those pale blue eyes. "You different too. Not Kreven. You human." "That's right. I'm human. Humans good?" Dae-hyun smiled. "Some humans are good. Some are bad. Just like any species, I suppose. But I try to be good. You save me," Hyan said simply. "You very good." Something warm filled Dae-hyun's chest. He reached out and gently stroked Hyan's head, careful of the soft scales. The hatchling leaned into his touch, making a soft purring sound. "I'll keep you safe," Dae-hyun promised. "I don't care what the Krevens say. You're under my protection now." But even as he made that promise, a worry nagged at him. What would he do with Hyan long term? He couldn't keep the hatchling in his truck forever. Hyan needed proper care, education, a real home, and there was the problem of the Krevens themselves. If they found out a human had taken one of their cast-offs, what would they do? These thoughts troubled him as they continued their journey. They were 2 days from the human settlement when they encountered their first problem. The rover's engine started making a strange grinding noise. Dae-hyun pulled over and checked the diagnostics. One of the main bearings was failing. He could make it to the settlement, but he'd have to drive slowly and carefully. He was under the rover trying to patch the bearing temporarily when he heard Hyan make a sharp, frightened sound. He rolled out quickly and looked around. 3 Kreven warriors stood about 50 meters away watching them. These were not like Hyan. They were fully grown, nearly 3 meters tall, with dark green scales and powerful builds. They wore minimal armor and carried long spears with stone tips. Their eyes were fixed on the white hatchling. Dae-hyun stood up slowly, positioning himself between Hyan and the warriors. His hand moved to the small plasma pistol at his belt. He didn't want to fight, but he would if he had to. The largest warrior stepped forward. When it spoke, its voice was deep and harsh. But Dae-hyun's translator device picked up the meaning. "That hatchling belongs to the Broken Tooth clan. You have no right to it. Human. It was dying in the desert," Dae-hyun replied, keeping his voice calm. "I saved its life. It was cast out properly according to our laws. White scales mean a cursed spirit. The desert cleanses what should not exist. Your laws are cruel." The warrior's eyes narrowed. "Our laws are our own. Give us the abomination and you may leave in peace." Dae-hyun felt Hyan press against his leg, trembling. The little hatchling was terrified. He looked down and saw trust in those pale eyes. Trust in him to keep the promise he had made. He looked back at the warriors and spoke clearly. "No." The lead warrior's hand tightened on his spear. "You refuse?" "I refuse. This child is under my protection. It stays with me." For a long moment nobody moved. The tension was thick enough to cut. Then the warrior made a gesture, and the other 2 started to advance. Dae-hyun drew his plasma pistol and fired a warning shot into the ground between them. The blast sent up a spray of red sand and left a small crater. The warriors stopped, eyeing the weapon warily. "I don't want to fight," Dae-hyun said, "but I will if you force me. This hatchling has done nothing wrong except be born different. That's not a crime. Not to my people. The lead warrior stared at him for a long time. Then it spoke again. You make a mistake, human. The clans will hear of this. They will not forget. Let them hear, Daehyun said. Let them know that humans don't abandon children to die in the desert. The warriors turned and walked away, disappearing into the rocky terrain. Daehyun didn't lower his weapon until they were out of sight. Then he holstered it and knelt down beside Hyun. Are you okay? Scared, Hyun whispered. They won't hurt me. I won't let them. I promise. But as they got back in the rover and continued their journey, Daehyun knew things had changed. The Krevans knew about Hyun now, and they weren't happy. He had just made himself an enemy of an entire alien species. Still, when he looked at the small white hatchling sitting trustingly beside him, he knew he had made the right choice. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The human settlement on Kreven Prime was called New Haven. It wasn't much to look at, just a cluster of prefab buildings and storage domes surrounded by a security fence. But it was home to about 200 humans who worked in mining, transport, and trade on this hostile world. Daehyun arrived at the main gate 3 hours after his encounter with the warriors. The guards recognized his rover and waved him through. He drove straight to his small apartment on the edge of the settlement and carried Hyun inside, wrapped in a blanket. His neighbor, an older man named Tae-min, saw him and raised an eyebrow. What have you got there? A friend, Daehyun said simply. Word spread quickly in a small settlement. By evening, several people had come by to see the white Kreven hatchling. Most were curious and friendly. A few were worried about the consequences of harboring a native creature, especially one that had been deliberately cast out. Yuna, the mining station manager, visited that night. She sat at Daehyun's small table while Hyun explored the apartment cautiously, touching everything with curious fingers. The Krevans are asking questions, Yuna said. They want to know if we're keeping one of their kind here. What did you tell them? I said I'd look into it. But Daehyun, this is serious. The Krevans have been tolerating our presence here because we don't interfere with their culture. If they think we're stealing their children, stealing? I saved a life. That's not stealing. To them it might be. They have their ways and we've always respected that. Daehyun looked at Hyun, who was examining a potted plant with fascination. Their ways include leaving babies to die. I can't respect that, Yuna sighed. I understand. I really do. But you need to be careful. The clan leaders are meeting about this. They might demand Hyun back. They can demand all they want. The answer is no. 2 days later, the situation got worse. Daehyun was in the settlement's small market, buying supplies when the warning sirens went off. Everyone looked up in alarm. The sirens only sounded for emergencies or when unauthorized visitors approached. He ran toward the main gate with several others. What he saw made his blood run cold. A group of Kreven warriors stood outside the fence, at least 20 of them. They were fully armed and wore war paint on their scales. At their head was a massive warrior, bigger than any Daehyun had seen before. This one wore a necklace of what looked like bones and carried a huge stone axe. The settlement leader, a stern woman named Haiwan, was already at the gate talking to them through the fence. Her voice was firm but diplomatic. This is human territory, granted to us by treaty with your High Council. You have no authority here. The big warrior spoke, his voice like grinding stones. The translator rendered his words. I am Grail, war leader of the Broken Tooth clan. You harbor an abomination that belongs to my people. Return it or face the consequences. The creature you speak of was dying in the desert. One of our people saved its life. It is now under our protection. It was cast out according to our sacred laws. The white one must die. That is the way. Not while it is on human territory, Haiwan said firmly. We do not kill children for being different. Graal's eyes narrowed. Then you declare yourself an enemy of the Broken Tooth clan. I declare that we will not hand over an innocent creature to be murdered. If that makes us enemies, so be it. The tension was enormous. The warriors gripped their weapons tighter. The human guards raised their rifles. One wrong move and blood would be spilled. Then Grail gestured and the warriors stepped back. We will not attack human territory today. But know this. The moment that abomination leaves your fence, it is ours to reclaim. You have made a mistake protecting it. The warriors withdrew, but they didn't leave. They set up a camp about 1 kilometer away, clearly visible from the settlement. They were watching, waiting. Daehyun felt sick. He had brought this danger to his community. He found Heywan after the confrontation and tried to apologize, but she held up a hand. "Don't," she said. "You did what any decent person would do. We're not going to let them kill a child, no matter what species it is. But we do have a problem now, I know. They're waiting for Hyan to leave the settlement. More than that, this could damage our relationship with all the Kreven clans. We need that relationship for our mining operations, for trade, for peace. If the other clans side with the Broken Tooth, I'll leave," Daehyun said suddenly. "I'll take Hyan and go somewhere else. That way you can tell them we're gone." "And where would you go?" "They'd hunt you across the whole planet." "No, that's not a solution." For 3 days, the standoff continued. The Kreven warriors remained in their camp, watching the settlement. Life inside New Haven went on, but everyone was nervous. The guards doubled their patrols. Shipments were delayed because the Krevens were blocking the main road. Hyan seemed to sense the tension. The little hatchling stayed close to Daehyun, speaking less than usual. When Daehyun tried to teach new words or play simple games, Hyan's responses were distracted. On the 3rd night, Hyan finally spoke what was on its mind. "They wait for me. Want kill me. They won't get you. You're safe here. Safe now. But tomorrow, next day, they wait forever. Your people suffer because of me. That's not your fault, is my fault. I was born wrong. Born cursed." Daehyun knelt down to Hyan's level and looked into those pale blue eyes. "Listen to me. You are not cursed. You are not wrong. You're just different, and different is not bad. Your people are wrong about this, not you. But my people angry. Your people in danger. Maybe I should go to them. End the problem." "No," Daehyun said fiercely. "Don't even think that. You're not going anywhere near them." Tears formed in Hyan's eyes, something Daehyun hadn't known the hatchling could do. "Don't want die, but don't want you hurt either." Daehyun pulled Hyan into a gentle embrace. "Nobody's going to die, and nobody's going to get hurt. We'll find a way through this." But he didn't know what that way was. The situation seemed impossible. The Krevens wouldn't leave. Humans couldn't hand over Hyan. Something had to break. On the 4th day, something did. An alarm woke everyone at dawn. Daehyun rushed to his window and saw smoke rising from the southern part of the settlement. Fire. The Krevens had somehow gotten past the fence and set fire to one of the storage buildings. Chaos erupted. People ran to fight the flames. Guards rushed to find the intruders. In the confusion, Daehyun realized with horror that this might be a distraction. He ran to check on Hyan. The apartment was empty. The door stood open. Hyan was gone. Panic filled him. He ran outside, calling Hyan's name. Where would the hatchling go? Then he understood. Hyan had decided to sacrifice itself to save the humans from more trouble. Daehyun sprinted toward the main gate. He could see it in the distance, partially open as vehicles came in to help fight the fire. And there, walking through the gate, was a small white figure. "Hyan!" "No." He ran faster than he had ever run in his life. But he was too far away. He watched in horror as Hyan walked out of the safety of the settlement and toward the Kreven camp. Several warriors saw the hatchling and started moving toward it. Grail emerged from his tent, his massive axe in hand. He looked down at the small white hatchling that had walked straight to him. A cruel smile crossed his face. "So the abomination comes to accept its fate. Good. The spirits will be pleased." Hyan looked up at him with quiet dignity. "Not abomination. I'm Hyan. I'm child. But will die if means peace for humans." Graal raised his axe. Daehyun was still too far away, screaming Hyan's name. Time seemed to slow down. The axe began to fall. Then a blinding light filled the sky. A massive ship appeared overhead, dropping from orbit so fast it seemed to materialize from nothing. It was a human vessel, bigger than anything stationed on Kreven Prime. The downdraft from its engines knocked everyone to the ground, including Grail. The ship's weapons powered up, targeting systems locking onto every Kreven warrior. A voice boomed from loudspeakers, speaking in the Kreven language. "Stand down. The creature is under human protection. Any attempt to harm it will be considered an act of war." Grail struggled to his feet, shading his eyes against the ship's lights. "You have no authority here." "We have every authority. We are the Human Transport Guild, and we protect our own. That includes any being who has been granted sanctuary by one of our members." Another figure appeared walking down the ship's ramp. She was a tall woman in a captain's uniform, her expression hard as steel. She walked straight to where Hyan lay on the ground. picked up the trembling hatchling and held it protectively. "I am Captain Jiwoo," she announced, "and this standoff ends now." Daehyun finally reached them, breathing hard. Jiwoo handed Hyan to him without a word. The hatchling clung to Daehyun, shaking but alive. Growl stared at the ship, at the weapons pointed at his warriors, at the captain who stood fearlessly before him. Slowly he lowered his axe. "This is not over," he said darkly. "No," Jiwoo agreed. "It's not. We need to talk, all of us. But first everyone puts their weapons down. Now." The warriors looked to Growl. After a long moment he nodded, weapons lowered on both sides. The immediate danger had passed. But as Daehyun held Hyan close, feeling the hatchling's rapid heartbeat against his chest, he knew Jiwoo was right. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. The meeting took place in the settlement's main hall, hastily cleared and arranged for the occasion. On one side sat the Kraven warriors, led by Growl. On the other side sat the human representatives, including Captain Jiwoo, settlement leader Haiwan, and Daehyun, who held Hyan in his lap. Between them sat neutral observers from 3 other species who traded on Kraven Prime, there to witness whatever was decided. The air was thick with tension. Growl's warriors looked angry, their hands never far from their weapons. The human guards were equally ready, though they tried to appear calm. Only Captain Jiwoo seemed completely at ease, her hands folded on the table in front of her. "Let us begin," said one of the neutral observers, a thin insectoid trader named Click 7. "The Broken Tooth clan claims ownership of the white hatchling. The humans claim the right to protect it. We must find resolution before blood is shed." Growl spoke first, his deep voice filling the room. "The law is clear. White scales mark a cursed spirit. Such creatures bring misfortune to the clan. They must be returned to the desert so the spirits can reclaim them. This has been our way for 1,000 generations." "And if a creature survives the desert?" Jiwoo asked calmly. "None survive. The spirits ensure it. Yet this one did survive, because a human found it and chose mercy over cruelty." Growl slammed his fist on the table. "You know nothing of our ways. You cannot judge what you do not understand." "I understand perfectly," Jiwoo said, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel. "You abandon your own children to die because they look different. That's not culture. That's murder." Angry hisses came from the Kraven side. Several warriors started to rise, but Growl held up a hand to stop them. He glared at Jiwoo. Strong words from someone who does not live under the spirit's gaze. "The White Ones are cursed. They bring disease, famine, defeat, and battle. Our history proves this. Does it?" Haiwan spoke up. "Or is that just what your elders tell you? Have you ever actually let one live to see what happens? We do not need to test the spirit's will. The curse is known." Daehyun felt Hyan tremble in his arms. The little hatchling understood enough of what was being said to know its life hung in the balance. He held it a bit tighter. "I have a question," Daehyun said quietly. All eyes turned to him. "Growl, have you ever actually seen a white Kraven bring misfortune? Not heard stories about it, but seen it yourself?" Growl's eyes narrowed. "I do not need to see it. The knowledge of our ancestors is enough. So the answer is no. You're basing this on old stories and fear, not on facts. You dare call our sacred traditions mere stories? I'm saying that maybe your ancestors were wrong. Maybe they were afraid of something they didn't understand, so they created stories to justify getting rid of it. Humans always think they know better than others." Growl said bitterly. "You come to our world and judge us by your standards. But these are our lands, our people, our laws." Captain Jiwoo leaned forward. "You're right. These are your lands. But that child in Daehyun's arms is no longer just your concern. By accepting protection from a human, Hyan has invoked an ancient right that exists across many cultures. The right of sanctuary. We do not recognize this right." "Then let me make it simple," Jiwoo said. "The Human Transport Guild has formally granted sanctuary to Hyan. Under our laws, that makes the hatchling a protected person. Any attempt to harm Hyan is an attack on the guild itself. And what will your guild do? Go to war over one deformed hatchling? If necessary, yes." The room went silent. Everyone stared at Jiwoo in shock, including the other humans. She continued speaking, her voice steady and serious. "You seem to think we're bluffing, Growl. Let me be very clear. Humanity has one principle we hold above all others. We protect those who cannot protect themselves. We do not abandon children. We do not murder the innocent. And we do not stand by while others do so in front of us. One ship does not make you powerful enough to threaten us. One ship? Jiwoo smiled coldly. Look at your data screens. Check your orbit sensors. One of the neutral observers pulled up a holographic display. There in orbit around Kriven Prime were 7 more human ships. They had arrived silently while the meeting was happening. 8 ships total, Jiwoo said, each one carrying enough firepower to level your largest city. And if you somehow managed to destroy all of them, do you know what would happen? More would come. And more after that, because the guild protects its own. Always. Growl looked at the display, then back at Jiwoo. For the first time, uncertainty showed in his eyes. You would truly go to war over this? We would. But it doesn't have to come to that. There's another way. What way? Jiwoo pulled out a document and placed it on the table. We propose a formal agreement. The Broken Tooth clan will relinquish all claims to Haiyan. In return, the Human Transport Guild will provide your clan with technology and trade goods worth significantly more than one child. You think to buy the abomination? I think to save lives on both sides. Your pride isn't worth a war, Grail, and that child's life isn't worth sacrificing on the altar of superstition. Growl studied the document, his warriors whispering among themselves. The numbers were impressive. Medical supplies, advanced tools, water purification systems, things that could genuinely help his people. But he shook his head. It is not about trade goods. It is about our laws, our traditions. If we allow this, others will question the old ways. The clans will see us as weak. Or, Haewon interjected, they'll see you as wise. Wise enough to know when to bend rather than break. Wise enough to value practical benefits over ancient fears. And what of the curse? If the White One lives and brings misfortune to us? Then we'll deal with it, Jiwoo said. Haiyan will live with humans, not among your people. Any supposed curse will fall on us, not you. Daehyun spoke again. Grawl, I've been with Haiyan for over 2 weeks now. In that time, my rover hasn't broken down any worse than usual. I haven't gotten sick. No disasters have struck me. The only thing that's happened is I've made a friend. A smart, kind friend who just wants to live. The hatchling can speak? Grawl looked surprised. Yes, Haiyan has learned our language. Would you like to hear? Growl nodded slowly, curiosity overcoming his hostility. Daehyun gently encouraged Haiyan to speak. The little hatchling looked up at the massive warrior who had nearly killed it and spoke in a small but clear voice. I'm Haiyan. Was born with white scales. Did not choose this. Only want live. Want learn. Want have family, even if different family than born into. The hatchling paused, then added, please, not want die. Something changed in Grail's expression. Just for a moment his hardness cracked and something almost like pain showed through. He looked away from Haiyan's pleading eyes. In all my years, he said quietly, I have never heard a white one speak. We always take them to the desert right away, before they can open their eyes, before they can make sounds. It is easier that way. Easier to kill something you think of as a thing rather than a person, Jiwoo said softly. I understand. It's a common way humans dealt with things that scared us too in our past. But we learned better. We grew beyond that fear. Growl was quiet for a long time. His warriors watched him, waiting for direction. Finally he spoke. I must consult with the clan elders. This decision is too big for me alone. How long will that take? Haewon asked. 3 days. We will send a runner to the clan meeting grounds and return with their wisdom. Jiwoo nodded. 3 days. We can wait that long. But know this, Grail, if the answer is war, we will not back down. That child will be protected. I understand. The humans have made their position clear. Growl stood and his warriors rose with him. We will return in 3 days with the clan's decision. After the Cravens left, the humans let out a collective breath. Haewon looked at Jiwoo with something like awe. 8 ships? You brought 8 ships for one hatchling? Jiwoo smiled. Actually, 3 of them were already in the sector for other work. But Growl didn't need to know that. The point is we show strength when protecting those who need it. That's what the guild does. She turned to Daehyun. You did well calling for help when you did. Your distress beacon reached us just in time. I didn't send a distress beacon, Daehyun said, confused. Then who did? Taemin, Daehyun's neighbor, raised his hand sheepishly. I did. I saw what was happening and figured you might need backup. Hope you don't mind. Daehyun laughed, relief washing over him. Mind? You might have saved all our lives. The next 3 days were tense but hopeful. The human ships remained in orbit, a constant reminder of humanity's commitment. Hyan stayed close to Daehyun, but seemed a bit more relaxed now that the immediate threat had passed. On the third day, Growl returned with 5 elders from the Broken Tooth clan. They looked ancient, their scales faded and scarred from long lives. They sat across from the human representatives and spoke with gravitas. The oldest, a female with milky eyes, was their spokesperson. "We have discussed the matter of the White Hatchling. We have consulted the spirits and examined the old ways. The clan has decided." Everyone held their breath. Hyan pressed against Daehyun's side. "We will accept the human offer. The White One will be released from clan law. It will be considered dead to us, as if the desert had truly claimed it. In this way, tradition is satisfied." Relief flooded through the room. Jiwoo inclined her head respectfully. "The Human Transport Guild thanks you for your wisdom." The old elder looked. 5 years had passed since the day Daehyun found a dying hatchling in the Red Desert. The galaxy had changed in that time, and so had Hyan. The small white creature was small no longer. Hyan now stood as tall as Daehyun's shoulder, with scales that had hardened into proper armor, and a mind that had grown sharper than most humans Daehyun knew. The pale blue eyes remained the same, though, full of intelligence and kindness. Together they had traveled across a dozen worlds. Daehyun still worked as a transport hauler, but now he had a partner. Hyan had proven skilled at navigation, cargo management, and communicating with alien species that humans sometimes struggled to understand. The two of them had become well known in the Transport Guild as an unusual but effective team. They were currently on a space station orbiting a neutral trade world, waiting for their next shipment assignment. Hyan sat in the station's observation lounge, watching ships come and go through the massive transparent dome. Other species gave the White Craven curious looks, but Hyan had learned to ignore the stares. Daehyun approached with 2 drinks, handing one to Hyan. "Captain Jiwoo sent a message. She wants to meet us. She has mission? Maybe. Or maybe just wants to catch up. She helped save your life after all. We owe her." They found Jiwoo in one of the station's private meeting rooms. The captain looked older now, with more gray in her hair, but her eyes were still sharp and commanding. 2 other people sat with her, both human. One was a young woman in diplomatic robes, the other an elderly man who wore the insignia of the Guild's council. "Daehyun, Hyan, good to see you both," Jiwoo said warmly. "Thank you for coming. I have a proposition for you, but first, let me introduce my colleagues. This is Ambassador Soo-jin, and this is Council Member Byung-ho." They exchanged greetings and sat down. Hyan noticed the serious expressions on everyone's faces. "Something wrong?" Hyan asked. Ambassador Soo-jin spoke. "We've received troubling reports from Craven Prime. The planet is experiencing significant social unrest. Several clans are fighting each other and the violence is spreading." Daehyun frowned. "Why, what's causing it?" "The old ways are breaking down," Byung-ho explained. "For generations, Craven society was stable because everyone followed strict traditions. But over the past 5 years, more and more young Cravens are questioning those traditions. They've seen how other species live. They've heard the story of Hyan. Some of them want change. The conservative clans see this as a threat," Soo-jin continued. "They're trying to enforce the old laws more harshly. But that's just making the resistance stronger. There have been battles. Villages burned. Hundreds dead." Hyan's expression became pained. "My people dying because of me? Not because of you," Jiwoo said firmly. "Because of a society that was already cracking under the weight of its own cruelty. You didn't cause this, Hyan. You just became a symbol of the possibility of change." "What do you need from us?" Daehyun asked. "The Guild Council believes you two might be able to help," Byung-ho said. "Hyan, you're the only Craven who has lived outside traditional society. You've proven that the old beliefs about white scales were wrong. If you were to return to Craven Prime, if you were to speak to both sides, maybe you could help them find peace." Hyan was silent for a long time, looking down at its clawed hands. When it finally spoke, its voice was uncertain. "Not know if can help. I am still strange to them. Still cursed in their eyes. Not all of them," Soo-jin said gently. "We've been in contact with some of the resistance leaders. Many of them specifically asked if you could come. They want their people to see living proof that the old ways were wrong." "It's dangerous," Daehyun said protectively. "The conservative clans will try to kill Hyan." "Yes, probably," Jiwoo agreed. "That's why this has to be Hyan's choice. We won't force it. But we believe this is important, not just for the Crevens, but for the principle of the thing. Sometimes change requires courage from those who have been hurt the most. Hyan looked at Daehyun. What you think? Daehyun took a deep breath. I think it's your decision. But if you go, I go with you. We're family, remember? Families stick together. Hyan nodded slowly, then looked back at the others. We'll go. If can help stop killing, must try. But need time to prepare. Need learn more about what happening. Over the next 2 weeks, they studied everything they could about the situation on Creven Prime. The conflict was worse than they had thought. The Broken Tooth clan, Hyan's original clan, was one of the conservative groups. They were fighting against a coalition of younger Crevens who called themselves the New Path. The New Path wanted to end traditions like abandoning white hatchlings, the strict gender roles that limited females to certain work, and the prohibition against learning from other species. They wanted to join the wider galactic community as equals, not isolated primitives. The conservative clan saw this as betrayal of everything their ancestors had built. The war between old and new was tearing the species apart. When they finally arrived at Creven Prime, escorted by guild ships, they found a world transformed. Smoke rose from multiple locations. The human settlement had been evacuated, too dangerous to maintain during the fighting. The beautiful red deserts were scarred with weapon impacts and makeshift fortifications. They landed at a New Path camp on the northern continent. Hundreds of young Crevens gathered to see the legendary White One. Hyan stepped out of the ship and faced them, trying not to show fear. A female Creven stepped forward, tall and strong, with bright green scales. I am Vara, leader of the New Path. We are honored that you came, Hyan. Your existence gives us hope. Hope for what? Hyan asked. Hope that we can be more than our ancestors imagined. Hope that different doesn't mean cursed. Hope that we can change without destroying ourselves. She led them through the camp. Hyan saw wounded warriors being tended by healers who used both traditional medicines and modern technology. Children practiced reading and writing, things that had been restricted in the old ways. It was a society trying desperately to be born. The conservative clans gather for a final assault, Vera explained. They have more warriors, better weapons. They believe the spirits favor them. In 3 days they will attack this camp. Many will die. Why not leave? Go somewhere safer? Daehyun asked. Because this is our home. We should not have to leave our own world to live freely. Better to die fighting for change than to live forever in chains. That night, Hyan stood on a hill overlooking the camp, thinking. Daehyun found him there. Having second thoughts? Thinking about Graal, Hyan said. The warrior who tried to kill me. He seemed to question at the end. Seemed to wonder if old ways were right. You want to talk to him. Want to try. Maybe if he listens, others will too. It was an enormous risk, but they arranged it through neutral intermediaries. Graal agreed to meet, probably out of curiosity more than anything else. The meeting took place in the ruins of an ancient temple, neutral ground. Graal had aged in 5 years, but he was still massive and intimidating. He looked at Hyan with an unreadable expression. So the White One returns. The elders said you would bring disaster, and look, war came. War came because people were hurting, Hyan said calmly. War came because young Crevens saw better ways to live and wanted change. I did not cause this. You are a symbol of everything wrong with the young ones. They see you alive and think the old ways were false. No, the old ways were false. You left me to die for being different. Would you do that to your own children? Graal's fists clenched. I have no children. My mate could not produce eggs. By old law, she should have been cast out, but I hid her, failing. So do not lecture me about the old ways, White One. I know their cruelty better than you think. This admission shocked everyone. Hyan stepped closer. Then why fight for them? Why lead warriors to kill people who just want freedom? Because without the old ways, we have no identity. Without traditions, what are we? Just another species copying humans, losing ourselves? Wrong, Hyan said passionately. Can keep what is good from old ways. Honor, courage, loyalty to clan. But must reject what is cruel. Must grow, must change. All species do this. Humans did. They had slavery once, did you know? They abandoned that. They grew better. And you think we can do the same? No, you can. Because you are here, talking instead of fighting. Because you hid your mate instead of following cruel law. Because you are better than old ways let you be. Graal was silent for a very long time. Finally he spoke, his voice heavy. If I agree to peace, if I convince the conservative clans to negotiate, What happens then? Do the young ones simply erase everything we believed? No, Farah said, stepping forward from where she had been listening. We find balance. We keep what makes us Kreven but release what makes us cruel. We learn from you, elders, and you learn from us. Together we become something new. Something better. You speak well for one so young. But words are easy. Making peace is hard. Then let us try the hard thing, Hayan said. Let us stop killing each other and start building something worth living for. The negotiation took weeks. Heated arguments, walkouts, moments where it seemed war would resume. But slowly, carefully, a compromise emerged. The new path would respect certain traditional ceremonies and acknowledge the wisdom of the Elde.